Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we're trying to hang on to just, not letting it go away altogether, because it was special. It was really a magical time, I think, and I mean, I look back at some of the best concerts I saw. I mean, I remember Cheap Trick came out with their Heaven Tonight record and they came through town and it was Pat Travers' UFO and Cheap Trick on the same bill,
Oh,
and wow, that to me, I think is one of my favorite concerts, along with Angel and the Gods. That was a big influence too back in the day. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Was it a simpler time? I don't know. Do we over romanticize the past? I don't know, but it to me it was a feel good time, and I just love the idea that with some of this music, hopefully we can take people back like a little time machine, and take you back to that time where you just singing along, throw your fist in the air, and rock and roll, and take you away from your troubles or your cares of the day, and that's what we're trying to do with this.
Listen to the vibes.
welcome everyone to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very excited and very happy to welcome Steve Ojane from the band Initial Kick. You got a pretty good discography going, so talk a little bit about that.
Oh, thanks. Well, this album that we just put out just came out October 6th. We're real proud of, and it took us a while to get these songs sounding the way we wanted, So we kind of took our time on it, but we finally got them where they're good representations of what we wanted to hear in the songs, and we're just real proud of that. So the new Initial Kick album, Plays With Mercury, that's what we're real psyched about right now.
And how many different bands have you been in?
Oh my God. Probably like 20. I don't know. I mean, if you're going back to like, teenage years and all that, like, yeah. I was born and raised in upstate New York, and around the Hudson Valley, around Poughkeepsie, Newburgh area. And it was just in a bunch of bands in my formative years up there, and cut my teeth on all the rock and roll of the late 70s and early 80s. And probably the most fun or the most noteworthy up there was Wasted Angel. And that was a lot of fun. I was in them for 4 years, and we were kind of like the local party band in the area up there. And then I moved to LA for a while. I was playing with Sammy Sirius from the Zeros and To the Curb, and then I moved back to the East Coast. And Frankie and I, we met up around 2006 in a band called Sweden Has the Bomb, and we played around Philadelphia area for a while, and that was a whole lot of fun. And that was the beginning of what would ultimately turn into what is now Initial Kick.
You were in Angel, right?
Yeah.
What was it like stepping into that band?
Whew. Wow. It was well, I've been playing with Punky for 6 years, and Punky was a hero of mine, like always. I had all the albums when I was a kid, when I was living in Poughkeepsie, New York as a teenager. Angel came through. I saw the White Hot tour. I saw the Sinful tour, and so it was really an interesting. I was actually performing in Initial Kick when I joined Angel, and then I had to like put Initial Kick on the back burner for a while. But to get to go out there and play all those songs that I love, all those Angel tunes that I love with Frank Domino and Punky Meadows and the rest of the band, and the guys are all great. It's really been a really fun time. We got to travel all over the world and play places I never would have played before, and it was a whole lot of fun. Definitely, probably the coolest rock band logo on the planet.
Yeah, that was made by a fan, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think if I remember the story right, I think it's called an ambigram, when you can take something and flip it and it's the same. Yeah, I think the story was the first version was like slipped to somebody on like a napkin, practically, that kind of thing, and I think Frank said, yeah, that's pretty awesome. We should run with it, and they did, and yeah, probably the best rock and roll logo ever created, I think.
Where did you come up with the name Initial Kick?
Yeah. That's kind of a funny story. Well, my partner in crime, Frankie Schaffer, and me, we were going back and forth. My guitar player, Frankie, we were going back and forth for a long time, and we couldn't decide on one. It was like every name he came up with, I wasn't really digging it. Every name I came up with, he wasn't really digging it. And we were in conversation one day. I just said, something about that initial kick you get when you first do something or whatever. And I was like, hey, initially that's not a bad idea, And we looked at each other for a second. And we were like, done, great, because it had taken us so long to get to that point. We were like, so it was more like it was just a name that we mutually didn't hate, And so that wound up being the one. That was that's what we went with. But we like it because it's kind of like you can read into it whatever you want, but on a number of different levels, right? But for me, it does sort of represent that almost what you described before about taking you back to your those first experiences in life that really leave an indelible impression in your psyche, those first experiences, those first times for everything in life, and most of those tend to be in your younger years, your teenage years and early 20s. So when I think of Initial Kick, that's kind of a nice representation of what we're trying to do with the music and represents that vibe.
Do you do the songwriting?
Most of it, yeah. Yes, some of these songs actually go way back. I mean, God, I was trying to think of it the other day, and like the verse lyrics for "Me and Rock and Roll," one of the songs on the new record. I started writing those in 1984. So it's some of these are going back like 40 years, and we were finally trying to get these all like a good really listenable version of these songs. I had like demos and all that over the years, but the new Initial Kick record, finally we feel like we got it right.
What usually influences you to write a song?
I think I kind of do it a little like backwards from most people. Like they got a guitar in their hand and they come up with a cool guitar riff, and then they figure a vocal melody or a lyric that goes on top of that. I tend to kind of work backwards. Like I'll hear like a vocal hook, in my head, and something vocally will just stick with me, and then I kind of figure out what chords work underneath it, to support that vocal melody. So it's a little backwards than I think most people do it, but that's my weird process.
I don't know how you guys can sit down and come up with words for these songs. When I try to, write out lyrics, I hate everything first off that I write, and then to put it together. How are you able to do that?
Well, sometimes it takes some time. It can be time consuming. Like I just mentioned before, that one song where I wrote the verses like 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago, and then the chorus came more like 10 years ago, and in the pieces you realize you're kind of making the same statement with different pieces, and then you can kind of Frankenstein monsters, splice them together and then come up with the final song, as long as thematically it works and, the tempo is the same and all that, you can do it like that. But the inspiration comes, I don't know where it comes from the ether, and I'm just so fortunate. I'm glad that we come up with some catchy tunes,
With your catalog of music, why did you pick the songs you did for this album?
That's a good question. We had to do some narrowing down. Really, we picked what we thought would be a good broad cross section to represent what we feel that this band, that Initial Kick, represents. And it is kind of a broad selection of not many of the songs sound like each other. There's right. a different thing going on with each one. And so much so that we had to really say, okay, well, this is what we want for the debut album, but like we're actually already working on the second record as we speak. That's in the works, because there was way too much. We couldn't even fit it all on, but we're like 12. Okay, we're going to max out at 12. I think more than that's even probably too much. I read an article recently where they said 8 songs is the number. That's the number you want, you know. People have short attention spans, you know, and sometimes if you throw too much at them, it starts detracting in a way because they can't fully process it all, you know. So, but we did go for 12 songs on this record, and the next one's already in the works. So, because it's definitely a 1-2 punch, you know, because there just wasn't enough space, and we didn't want to clutter it up. We didn't want to do like, you know, 16 songs or something like that. That is way over the top. So, get ready for the next one.
Okay, now who picked Sugar Sugar?
Oh, that's funny. Well, Frank and I picked that one. I was. It's funny because I wasn't exactly sure, you know, at first, because it started off as more of like, not like it was sort of a lark, you know. We were just kind of like, what's just the poppiest bubblegum ever written, and that's got to be it, you know, like Sugar Sugar by the Archies, right? We were just doing it kind of as a recording experiment, and by, you know, just happenstance and whatever, it turned out that it was like, whoa, this actually sounds really good, you know. And then it went from like almost a joke to like, okay, we really love this now, you know, like, and we're gonna put it on the record. So that's how that happened.
So you listened to it enough that it just kind of stuck, right?
Yeah, and yeah, it was fun too, because we had I like the little bait and switch in the beginning. It starts out with the guitar riff from My Girl, you know, and so people are ready for My Girl, and then when the vocals kick in, it's Sugar Sugar. So that was that was a cheap trick to play on the audience. That was, but it was fun doing it.
I think it's good to find something that's fun to put on an album, because music is supposed to be fun. It
Yes.
doesn't always have to be serious, you know, just,
Amen, brother.
yeah. So, you know, and now you've got me walking around the house with that in my head.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
The fun aspect is really like huge, figures in with what we're trying to express on this album. You know, we really just did want people just to listen to it. You know, if a couple of songs stick in your head, then that's great, you know, and we tried to make it kind of hook oriented, you know, and we're always thinking of live as well, you know, like you want a song that has a good, like, you know, chant along with the chorus kind of thing, and we think we accomplished that on a couple of them, especially like, I think Rock and Roll Saved My Life. That's like, you know, it's kind of like our anthem, you know. I think that's like our, you know, Rock and Roll All Night by Kiss or something like that, you know. It's a bit of an anthem and sing along, but the main thing, like, to your point about just fun, that's what we wanted to imbue this with, you know. Not a lot of heavy, you know, there's no big messages or anything, you know, but it really is just, I think, an album you can throw on and you know, have a good time listening to. And yeah, if people are just lifted a little bit, you know, their spirit a little happier, a little lighter, you know, take your mind off the problems of the day, you know, that kind of thing. That's what we were going for.
Well, to be honest with you, and I don't want to make a big commentary out of it, it just seems like there's so much seriousness going on in the world right now. It's nice to have a little bit of fun.
Yay. Amen, my brother.
I want to try my best to keep those days alive. I don't know if
Amen,
it's
brother.
my old age and I'm nostalgic, you know, trying to keep a hold of my teenage years, but I want to see that music of the 70s and 80s stay alive.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. And that's my feeling too. I mean, you know, nothing against contemporary music, but, you know, like I picked up a Billboard magazine the other day, and I hadn't seen one in years, literally, you know. So like I started flipping through. I didn't recognize anybody, you know. Now I don't know if that's more of a commentary on me, and maybe I just don't have my finger on the pulse, which you know, is kind of okay, you know. And there were times in my life when I might have been a little more concerned about you know, keeping up with trends and that kind of thing, trends in the music business. But at some point you reach a point where you just say, you know what, I know what I like, and I like what I know, and this is what I know, and that's what the Initial Kick record really is. And it's speaking to your point about, you know, the old school music. We love it, you know, and just everything from, you know, Mott The Hoople, you know, Ian Hunter, T-Rex, David Bowie, you know, Alice Cooper, Kiss, Hanoi Rocks, all that, you know, those are all the influences that drive us. And not much modern music is really kicking around in our heads as much. So we were just like, well, let's do what we know and try to recapture, if not in the details, at least in the essence, that feeling, like I said, late 70s, early 80s rock. That's the rock and roll that's in our soul. And we expressed it the best we could on this album. And hopefully people get a little bit of that vibe when they listen to it,
We were already killed off by grunge.
Right. I hate when that kicked in. Oh my God. I had such a good time in the 80s. I had such a good time in the 80s. And then that came along. I was like, oh no. And I understand why, everything kind of has to evolve or devolve or something, but I had such a fun time in the 80s. And I wasn't real thrilled. There was some good stuff in the 90s, but it seemed like I liked it when rock stars were, larger than life, like Kiss, like Angel, like Alice Cooper, and colorful characters, and it just seemed like grunge just was like, no, no more of that. We're going to wear our flannel shirts and our jeans and look like we just got done with our, day job at the gas station or something. And that's the new look. I'm like, oh, really? Why don't you just take all the fun out of it, So yeah, I miss the old days. Yeah. But we're trying to recapture some of that vibe, and hopefully we accomplish that on the new record.
What was your first concert?
Meatloaf, Bat Outta Hell.
Wow.
It was early 78, and I guess I was 15. And it was the original band. I mean, it was, Jim Steinman and Carla DeVito and all that. And they came through the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, Poughkeepsie, New York. And wow, that blew me away. It made me a Steinman and Meatloaf fan for the rest of my life, and I did eventually get to meet both of them. So I was thrilled, about that. And my second concert, 5 days later, I figured this out last year. I was looking at some stubs. My first concert was Meatloaf, the Bat Outta Hell tour. And 5 days later was Angel. So Angel was almost my first concert, and Angel came through with the White Hot tour right after that. So those were my big influences, I guess. Yeah, a lot of fun that was.
Who's your favorite bass player?
I mean, there's monster bass players out there that can just do stuff that I can't even touch. But then there's people who are more in my, in the realms of possibility. I mean, early influences for me was like Geddy Lee from Rush, Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. He was great, still is great. I just bought one of his Lakeland basses recently this last year. And Mark Mendoza from Twisted Sister does not get enough credit. Mark Mendoza is a monster, and you wouldn't know it listening to some of the albums. It's a lot of basic power chords and things in the background. But I used to roadie for them when I was very young. I was getting into the clubs like I was 17. I was getting into the clubs, and I was doing some local roadie work for Twisted Sister, and I got to know Mark, and just watching what he would do. He was still is an incredible bass player. So yeah, I would say Mendoza and Geezer Butler and Geddy Lee. Those were probably my big three when I was in my teenage years. And to some degree, Felix Robinson too. He was like he was very good, and some of it you can hear in the albums, but he's much better than even what you hear. So those are my guys. Yeah. Speaking of larger than life, colorful people, I mean, yeah, when Twisted was in the club days, you just see Mark and Jay and Dee doing their thing like 5 feet from you. They were incredible. I would say Dee Snider's probably I'd say he's the top 5 best frontmen ever. I mean, club days. I think something got lost when they actually made it, and then they went to the big venues. But he could control a crowd and keep your attention like nobody. I mean, and not only would you see these monster dudes on stage, they're all like 6 foot whatever, and just sweating and screaming in your face and everything, but they're playing this great bombastic like catchy rock and roll. But he'd also make you laugh till you had tears in your eyes, like the stuff they would come up with, Jay and Dee going back and forth back in the club days. Man, they were a lot of fun. Taught me a lot. Really, I'll tell you what, they taught me a lot indirectly, probably unknowingly, but it was really great because, had I been a roadie for say like Motley Crue or something like that, it would have been, womanizing, pill popping, whiskey swilling, just like every self-destructive thing you could probably think of, right? But when I was working for Twisted, I realized, oh, you can do this. You can play this like great, powerful rock and roll and put on this fantastic visual show. And they were all like, straight, there was like no drugs, there was no, and most of them were married at the time, and it just really showed me, oh, you can be a total professional and do this show. You don't have to be all those cliches and do all that stuff. You can keep your shit together and be a professional business person and do this great rock and roll. So that was a great life lesson at like 17 years old. Really they were a big influence on me, very big.
Has there been an obstacle in your life that you've had to overcome?
Wow. God, I mean, there's daily obstacles, right? People's obstacles usually are themselves, and I think for a long time, I may have, been in my own way a little too much, like overthinking things, and finally at this juncture in my life, I've gotten to a place where I'm really pretty comfortable in my own skin and enjoying what I'm doing. I mean, even I've been a bass player my whole life. That's my main instrument. That's my main craft, along with, songwriting. But I think there's times when we almost, sort of speaking for myself, you can feel like, well, I can't do this. That's something that other people do, or like in, even singing, because for me, this is a bit of a lark, I'm just kind of, it's kind of a grand experiment. I feel like I'm a bass player masquerading as a singer, you know what I mean? But then it kind of came off well, so we're happy with that. We had auditioned a bunch of singers originally. I was going to play bass in the band and just, we were going to have somebody else sing. And there were a bunch of singers who were all much, much better than me. But we weren't hearing the personality that we wanted to hear in the songs. We weren't really hearing the character that we wanted to put in each of these songs, because they all have a little bit of a sense of humor, and there's a little bit of a sideways kind of there's a snarl and an attitude, but it's still fun, and it's supposed to be funny. And we weren't really hearing that. We were hearing people reading off of a sheet of paper and all that. So eventually Frank was just like, Steve, why don't you just sing, And I was like, okay, I'll try that, like, because up until now all I do is sing, background in bands. I was playing bass and singing background, right? So, I think the message for me was just like, don't wait too long, to get a little out of your depth, a little out of your comfort zone and try something else, because that's the only way you can really expand, and if I could go back, I would say, speaking to obstacles, again, probably my own obstacle, just mental, right? Like, I probably should have tried singing more sooner, but better late than never. So I'm happy with what we're doing now, and I'm happy with where we're at right now.
Do you guys have a website?
Yeah, we do. It's initialkick.net, not com, .net.
.net.
Initialkick.net, and that'll keep you up to date. And we have a Facebook page as well. And yeah, for anybody who wants to pick up the new record, if you haven't got it already, it's on Amazon. You can get it there. If you like streaming, we're on Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, iTunes, SoundCloud, Pandora, Deezer, and Tidal. So
wow.
One of those should cover it.
And you got all that out in one breath.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so just tell Alexa or whoever, play me some Initial Kick, and they'll hook you up.
Are you guys going to tour?
Yeah, we were supposed to do a show for the record release party, which was at the Debonair Music Hall up in Teaneck. That was on October 6th, but Frankie got COVID a couple days before, so we couldn't perform, but we wound up just, going there and saying hi, and, did more of an album listening party rather than a live performance. And that turned out great. A lot of friends turned out. Stevie D, who mixed the album, he was amazing. Richie Rano from Stars, he played on the album a bit. And some guys from Angel, Billy Orico, the drummer, and Charlie Cal played some keyboards on the album as well. So like everybody who was a key player came out and celebrated with us. But that was going to be a live performance. But again, Frankie got COVID right before there. Perfect timing. So at this juncture, we're actually putting most of our focus on the next record already. We're so psyched about doing this, and the first one turned out great. So we're like, let's get the rest of it, because we couldn't fit it all on the first record. So we're trying to get the second record worked on now. But we will be doing shows in 2024.
Is it going to be like this album, or are you doing something
Oh
different?
yeah. No, it's going to be, if you like this album, you're going to like the next one too. It's things we just couldn't fit it all on there, and we're still writing more. So yeah, if you like the first one, you're going to love the second one too.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really been a pleasure.
Kyle, thank you for having me, man. It's really been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Thank you for the support and all the love that we've been feeling. It means a lot to us and keeps us going, doing what we're doing.
Thanks, man. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, well, I hope you'll come back. Hit that subscribe button. And from our regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. And until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.